Classic WoW will never feel like 2004 again, and honestly that feels right to say as we prepare to move into the Burning Crusade in 2026. The reason I say this is not because Blizzard changed the game, but because we changed as players. Everything from exploring your very first zone to stepping into Molten Core for the very first time isn't the same in today's iteration of Classic WoW. And that's why in this video I want to talk about how we evolved alongside the game we all came to know and love, and why it's finally time to say goodbye to what vanilla World of Warcraft once was. When I was in the process of making this video, I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me a little emotional, since Classic World of Warcraft is a game that many of us have called home for years. But at its core, it was built on the foundation of something even older, vanilla WoW. And that era is long gone. The idea of vanilla still lives on through Blizzard's third iteration of progression servers, Classic Anniversary, carrying that nostalgia forward into TBC and maybe even beyond. Whether that's Wrath or something entirely new like what the community calls Classic Plus. But if we want to understand where vanilla WoW is headed, we first have to understand where it's been. So when I see players say, I want Classic to feel like 2004 again, well, that experience back then was nobody knew where anything was. Nobody had leveling routes. There were no YouTube guides, no add-ons showing quest locations, and most people didn't even understand their own class. It truly was a fresh version of World of Warcraft where players wandered into zones 10 levels higher than themselves, dying instantly, and dungeon groups formed because players needed each other to survive, not because they were optimizing XP per hour. Raids themselves were unknown territory, so walking into Molten Core for the first time felt like stepping into another world, and killing Ragnaros, that was an actual accomplishment. Nobody was asking what's BIS, what's the meta, and should I re-roll for better DPS? Players picked classes because they looked cool. Someone saw a paladin with a giant hammer and said, yep, that's me now. That innocence, that discovery, that era is gone. Classic WoW today is solved, completely solved. Every quest, every dungeon, every raid mapped out. Every class rotation is known. Every boss mechanic has been broken down since 2005. Players now enter Classic with 20 years of knowledge, and knowledge is the one thing Blizzard cannot roll back. The world doesn't feel massive anymore because we already know what's in every corner of it. You can't recreate mystery for a player base that has already data mined every single detail. The average Classic player today knows more about Molten Core than the original dev team did back then. This isn't 2004 vanilla or even 2019 Classic anymore. We've now had Classic Launch, Season of Mastery, Hardcore, Classic Era, Season of Discovery, and even Classic Anniversary, and now a potential Classic Plus on the horizon. Each version pulls us further from that vanilla feeling. And why, do you ask? Because each time we play Classic, the player base gets even more optimized, faster leveling, more efficient dungeon routing, add-ons doing half the work, class guides that make you raid ready, and players who refuse to be bad even for fun. Classic is no longer an RPG, it's a speedrun with a login button. And that's not a Blizzard problem, that's a community evolution problem. In 2004, people asked, where's Mancrick's wife? How do I learn axes? Anyone want to quest together? Today they ask, what's my parse? What's the fastest route to 60? Is my class viable? What's my raid spot? Which dungeon gives the most gold or XP per hour? Players treat Classic like a job interview. Everyone rushes to 60, everyone rushes to pre-bis, everyone rushes to raids, and everyone is competing on logs. Classes aren't picked based on fantasy anymore, they're picked based on meta. And overall, Classic changed because the players changed. Here's the thing though, this isn't necessarily bad. The modern Classic community is smarter, more skilled, more connected, more efficient, and honestly, more demanding. Classic WoW didn't evolve into a worse version, it evolved into a different version. But the old feeling, the excitement, the unknown, the sense of adventure, that's gone. And not coming back just by re-releasing level 1 to 60 again. You can't recreate the magic of seeing Ironforge for the first time, or stepping into Blackrock Mountain as a clueless new player, or hearing about Onyxia for the first time from a friend saying, I just slayed a dragon. There's only one way Blizzard could ever recapture the 2004 feeling. New content that nobody has ever seen before. That means new zones, new dungeons, new raid mechanics, new items without data mined stats, new leveling routes nobody can optimize on day one, new class changes with actual experimentation, and a world where nobody knows the meta. Players don't want vanilla, they want discovery. We're not nostalgic for Classic, we're nostalgic for the feeling of being lost in an MMO. But Classic era alone, no chance. So Classic WoW will never be the same as it was in 2004, and it's not Blizzard's fault. It's not the game's fault, it's just us. We aren't the same players anymore. We know too much, we expect too much, and we optimize everything to death. The only way to bring back that first time feeling is to give players something truly new. Not a remake of the past, but a world with mysteries again. And honestly, that might be exactly what Classic needs next. So the real question becomes, what exactly is next for Classic WoW? Because if Blizzard wants to keep this version of the game alive for another 5 or 10 years, they can't just keep re-releasing the same content cycle forever or hoping Anniversary gets squeezed for all it's got. That nostalgia reservoir is already empty. However, when it comes to something new, players don't want to get sucked into something like Retail WoW, where it's more of a single player experience due to how automated the looking for dungeon/raid tool has become, or even how fast-paced the combat system is. MMOs were built on a social foundation while being difficult, and Vanilla WoW didn't fail to deliver, so keeping those aspects in the game is a must for Blizzard. That's why overall, so-called Classic Plus seems to be the only direction that makes sense. It wouldn't be a reboot, not another season of Mastery or even Anniversary 2.0, but new content built on top of the Classic world, content that brings the one thing we've lost completely: mystery. Classic Plus could finally give players something that they can't just Google on day one. It would be new zones that aren't in the original map files, places like Mount Hyjal, or zones as they were imagined in early concept art, or the unused areas of Azeroth finally completed and opened to explore. There would be new dungeons with zero pre-existing guides, no boss mechanics data mined, no routes optimized, no pull this pack and that pack and then LOS it over here. Players would have to figure it out together again. There would be raids that bring back the spirit of discovery. Imagine a raid where no one knows the boss mechanics, no potential PTR testing, no spoilers, a true world first race where Classic players are stepping into the unknown for the first time in 20 years. Class changes that shake up the meta, not balance for the sake of esports, just enough new talents or abilities to force players to experiment again. Suddenly, Warrior isn't the only BIS tank. Suddenly, meme specs aren't just meme specs. Players would actually test things again. There'd also be a progression format that isn't predictable. The normal Molten Core and a Blackwing layer and the AQ and an Axe? Mix it up, introduce new threats, new storylines, new itemization paths, anything that breaks the 20-year-old script. Because when everything is known, surprise becomes the rarest resource in an MMO. And that's exactly what Classic WoW is missing today. Classic Plus isn't about power, it's not about difficulty, and it's not even about rebalancing the meta. It's about giving the world of Azeroth the one thing it lost after 2004, the unknown. If Blizzard can deliver that just once, Classic WoW could feel new again. Not because it's a nostalgia reboot, but because it would finally give players something they haven't felt in decades. A reason to explore, a reason to get lost, a reason to experience wonder again in a place we all call home as classic World of Warcraft players. So with all of that said, this really is a goodbye to the true essence of what Vanilla WoW once was. Not because it failed, not because Blizzard ruined it, but because that original experience, the mystery, the uncertainty, the discovery, belongs to a moment in time that we can't recreate. But maybe, in the near future, we'll encounter that same mystery again, not by going backwards, but through something newly imagined. Something like a re-envisioned Classic WoW. And honestly, that might be exactly what Classic WoW needs next. Because for many of us, Classic WoW was never just a game. It was a place we logged into after a long day in the real world, a place that felt familiar, safe, and alive. Vanilla WoW was a world built on mystery, discovery, and adventure. You didn't just play it, you lived it. You got lost in it. You met players in it. And for a lot of us, that world became a second home, a place where progress wasn't measured in parses or optimization, but in the memories you made along the way. And that's why conversations like this still matter. Not because we're trying to relive the past, but because we're hoping that the future of Classic can still capture that vanilla feeling once again. So, what are your thoughts on the future of Classic WoW? Do you think Classic Plus will be the unexplored MMO we've all been waiting for, or will it be something we've already seen and been through multiple times? Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Got a single frost vulnerability, holy.
I got 99!
Did you really? Nice. Mana igniting cord. That's this for me. Whoa, I got a 96 on rag.